I have got an insight for you today that is really going to help you improve as a musician. It comes from the world of football, and that is soccer for my North American friends. And we're going to see how the concept of shrinking the space is not only going to help you improve faster, but actually reach higher levels overall. Let's do this. Now, people have spent a lot of time trying to understand and work out just why it is Brazil is so good at football. They do way better than you would expect for a nation of their size. And when people looked into it, it turns out that one of the key components is the way that they train their young players. And they spend a lot of their early time training not in football itself, but in a similar game called futsal, which shrinks the space down and only has 5 players rather than 11 players. Now, futsal is not exactly what they're training for in the end. Ultimately they want to be playing football. So why would it help to do something different? Well, by shrinking the space down and smaller numbers of players, what they're doing is they're testing those skills in tougher, more pressured environment, and each player gets more touches of the ball. So they're actually getting more frequency of training those skills. I think one study, for example, showed that when you play futsal rather than football, you touch the ball 6 times more frequently. So you've got this game that people are expecting, is this what's making the difference? And the tests do seem to show that it does. For example, one British football coach took the game back to the UK and started training players in it, youth players, and seeing great success with that, and already seeing at least one of those players who come up on it making the national team. So it really does seem to be that this is having an effect. So what's the underlying principle here? Because we want to understand how this works so we can use it in music. And really this is all about bringing in restrictions. Now, restrictions can be a great way, you might have heard people use them to boost creativity, and it's great for that, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're using restrictions as a way to improve skill. And there are 3 specific things that restrictions can be really powerful in doing. So they can help us increase the number of repetitions of a skill we practice, they can increase the intensity with which we practice it, and they can make it more clear what the goal is, help us focus with more clarity on exactly what the goal of the exercise is. So let's see how that applies to football and futsal. Well, the goal is clearer in futsal because you don't have a lot of the options that you would have in a bigger game of football. You can't kick huge long passes. You can't just use sheer pace to run past people or run into space. So it's got to be about ball control and that close quarters skill. So then there's the number of repetitions that you're doing. Well, there's fewer people, there's less space, the ball is being passed more, so you're just doing that more often. And then in the intensity, with less space, that means people are closer to you. You have less time to think while you control the ball, and the consequences are greater if you don't control it well because someone is right on top of you, so it really matters. So that's how all those things are applying there. And it's always good just to cross-check that this is, really a genuine understanding by seeing, do we see this sort of thing happening elsewhere? So one example from the world of business would be the car manufacturer Toyota. And they actually train new employees on a miniature production line, which is just based in one small room. And they actually find that by doing that, where their employees can see the whole production line and see how everything fits together, they actually learn faster. Now let's think about how we can apply this as musicians. And I'm going to give you some suggestions in just a second, but I do want you to take some time and think about your own ideas, because frankly, the possibilities are endless here. So get creative with this, and I would love to hear any ideas that you come up with in the comments. So just drop me a comment and let me know. And the first thing I'd suggest you do is just ask yourself a couple of questions. So the first one is, what is the minimum space you need to cover the key ingredient that you're practicing? Because this is what's going to help you increase the number of repetitions and the intensity of those repetitions. And the second question you can ask yourself is, where is extra space that you're allowing yourself, diluting your focus on the goal? Okay, now here are my 2 quick suggestions for a couple of ways you might put this into practice. And the first one is to restrict yourself to just the most challenging sections. So rather than practicing everything throughout a piece or every area of a topic. Just identify which are the bits that I really struggle with, which are the bits that are the hardest, and let me isolate those and work on those specifically and just give them more of my time and more of my intensity. And the second way that you can do this is to just click the like button below this video. Okay, obviously I'm joking there, but seriously, I would love it if you like this video. Thank you very much. But really, the second way that I'm going to suggest that you might practice this is by restricting yourself to particular techniques. So for example, just take a normal passage of music that you would play, which is just as it is, and maybe restrict yourself to using one particular way of articulating the notes or a special effect that you don't use very often, and just apply that to everything. So it could be playing everything staccato or everything legato or all sorts of things like that. Now, if you want to go further into this topic, then my Practice Multiplier course goes deeper into these ideas and a whole lot more as well. So hopefully there'll be a link on screen, and I'll put a link in the description as well. But if you'd just like a few further ideas on improving your practice, then check out my video on how to practice effectively next. And if you'd like the special practice and performance tips that I only share with subscribers, then head on over to playinthezone.com and sign up for the emails. They're free. I've been Morley-Fletcher. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.